Hello guys, in this video I'm going to talk about the flying alien attacks in Peru, summer 2023, and what happened there. This is going to be a deep research, and I will also talk about some documents, a research on anti-gravity, a PhD research on the topic from some time ago, and some other cases in South America that were similar, specifically Operation Saucer from the 70s. So let's dive into it. What happened? In 2023, there were some flying aliens harassing a village in Peru. The authorities investigated and they said these are actually illegal miners with jetpacks. This is the official story. So when I read that, I knew there was something fishy about it. This explanation is just stupid. It's very unrealistic to be people with jetpacks, and I'll tell you why. The locals described the attackers as strange beings that resembled aliens with silver color, round shoes that allowed them to float 1 meter high, long heads, long masks, and yellowish eyes. The alleged extraterrestrial attackers were said to have attempted to kidnap a 15-year-old girl. I actually found an interview with that girl, and you will see it later in this video. The news of these attacks quickly spread online, igniting global conversations about the possibility of extraterrestrial life visiting Earth. However, after investigating the strange disturbances, authorities announced that they believed the perpetrators were members of illegal gold mining gangs from Colombia and Brazil. These miners were reportedly using advanced flying technology, possibly jetpacks, to terrorize the community. The lead investigator in the case, Carlos Castro Quintanilla, mentioned that 80% of illegal gold dredging in the region is located in the Nanay River Basin, where the indigenous Iquitu community is located. Despite these findings, authorities have not made any arrests related to the attacks. The explanation that the aliens were actually illegal miners using jetpacks seems unlikely for several reasons. Noise. Jetpacks are not silent. They work by expelling a forceful stream of gas or air downwards, which generates a significant amount of noise. This is due to the rapid expansion and expulsion of gases, which creates sound waves. If the villagers describe the beings as flying silently, this would contradict the known operation of jetpacks. Fuel limitations. Jetpacks have a very limited flight duration due to fuel constraints. The more fuel you need, the more your vehicle weighs. The more it weighs, the more energy is needed to move it. This creates a vicious cycle, making sustained flight difficult. This would make it challenging for the miners to travel long distances or hover for extended periods, as described by the villagers. Maneuverability. Jetpacks are hard to control and maneuver, especially in a dense jungle environment. They require open spaces for safe operation to avoid collisions with trees, buildings, or other obstacles. Maneuvering a jetpack in a forested or jungle area would be extremely difficult and dangerous. Visibility. Jetpacks also produce a visible exhaust plume, which would likely have been noticed by the villagers. According to the article, the beings were described by the locals as strange beings that resembled aliens. Here are the specific details about their appearance and armor. Color. Their color was described as silver shoes. They had round shoes that allowed them to float 1 meter high. Heads and masks. Their heads and masks were described as long. Eyes. Their eyes were described as sort of yellowish. Armor. They seemed armored like the Green Goblin from Spider-Man. This description sounds a bit ridiculous, and this is on purpose. It's part of their camouflage. When the witnesses describe it, it will sound absurd to investigators and authorities. Here we have the element of high strangeness that Jacques Vallée is talking about. So when I read that, I was thinking, how come there is no one that can just go there and investigate what actually happened? And I found that guy who went there on an expedition to see what's going on. This guy is called Timothy Alberino. He actually went there because I think he lives close by. And he did an expedition there, and this is the expedition report. He talked to the villagers and helped them with provisions. You can see it on his channel, link in description. He goes there with a boat, and you can see all the villagers are carrying their guns when they meet him. And I don't think those people were faking it to be famous on YouTube or something like that, like some skeptics said in the beginning. I don't think they care about YouTube views.
Two people rather than one. It is interesting to note that the assailants always come in pairs. There are always two or groups of two. Aside from the flying circular platforms, the assailants are also equipped with advanced aerospace vehicles, what we might call UFOs. These craft have been seen by multiple people in the village and are described exactly the same by everyone. The fuselage of the craft is shaped somewhat like an acorn, with the narrow part being the nose and the wider part the aft. They're about the length of a private jet, but much wider, and in the place of wings, they have small, rounded protrusions which fold open and deploy a series of rapidly blinking lights. The craft have been viewed hovering above the village at very low altitude, some 30 to 40 feet, and have no apparent propulsion systems such as engines or propellers. In one case, the craft appeared to be completely transparent, and two pilots could be seen sitting inside. Like the circular platforms, the craft are completely silent, except when they accelerate, at which point they make a low frequency humming sound. The platforms and the craft have been seen on many occasions by many people hovering above or flying over the village. She just stood there and trembled, head to foot, trembled for probably a good 2 minutes, just stood there silent, trembling. She could not speak. Obviously, something very traumatic had happened to her right there in the backyard where we were standing. And the assailants were my height, I'm 6'1", reminded her of the assailants because they were very tall. So what happened to Talia? What happened to this young lady is that one night, one evening, she was picking fruit from her tree. And this was right after dusk, so it just got dark. She's picking fruit from the tree. She's knocking the fruit down with this long stick, and the fruit falls to the ground. Talia proceeds to bend over and pick up the fruit that fell to the ground, and there are under the tree there are some dead leaves, and suddenly she feels this gust of wind behind her, and the leaves she notices rustle as she goes to pick up the fruit. She feels this gust of wind, and the leaves are rustling a little bit on the ground, and so she looks behind her, and what does she see? She sees a person coming up the hill, because the backyard is kind of a little gully. It's forested. There's some jungle there between the other houses. So it's this little gully. We have it on film. And she sees this guy, this person, this thing coming up the hill almost as if he's surfing on one of these circular platforms. And he comes up the hill and he lands next to her and then immediately grabs her. He seizes her from behind and he places his hand over her mouth. So he's got her from behind and he's got his hand over her mouth so she can't scream. Then she sees another one of these guys coming on another platform up the hill and lands and positions himself in front of her and grabs her leg. So now she is being held by two of these Pelacaras, face peelers, one behind her with a hand over the mouth and the other has her legs. The description she gave me of these individuals is identical to what everybody else was saying to us.
According to Talia, these individuals spoke Spanish. The taller one, she says, spoke Spanish like a gringo with an accent. The other one spoke with the local accent. This is a very important point. It shows that those things are not aliens from outer space. I will explain what the locals are calling gringo in part 3. It's in the PhD research I found, and their term for gringo is not just Americans or white guys. It means a foreigner, everything and everybody that looks like a foreigner to them, different skin color, different language, they call gringo. Timothy Alberino had posted a video before that of a fisherman in this area who was caught by those same things, and his face was actually peeled off. In this video, you can see his skull is clean. All the flesh and skin is taken off. This video was taken off because, of course, it was very disturbing and it was breaking the rules of those video platforms. But the thing is, those face peelers are real. And we're talking about organ trafficking here and organ harvesting by those black, deep undercover groups. We are talking about suppressed technology here, anti-gravity technology, deep black projects which are kept secret, and I'll show you another case of those deep black projects using high technology. It may be reverse engineered from alien craft, or maybe just our scientists or some scientists here on Earth in some secret group, or a breakaway civilization discovered it, some people say around the 50s, and this is now one of the best kept secrets. I will talk more about anti-gravity and its side effects in the second part of this video. This is a huge cover-up. Maybe the whole story of aliens is a cover-up for that, to make it all sound absurd and unbelievable. But what I have found in my research is that most definitely those people have anti-gravity technology, and they are from some deep black projects that are unaccounted for. They're not part of any government. They are siphoning billions of dollars for their projects for research and development. We have another similar case from the 70s. Operation Saucer, Portuguese Operação Prado, was an investigation carried out between 1977 and 1978 by the Brazilian Air Force, following alleged UFO sightings in the city of Colares. Here are some key details. Precedent events. In 1977, numerous UFOs were reported in the Brazilian city of Colares, Pará. Local residents claimed that scars on their bodies were caused by the lights in the sky, and named the lights Chupa Chupa, literally sucker sucker. Residents of Colares organized night vigils, lit fires, and ignited fireworks to keep the lights away. The operation. The operation was commanded by Captain Uirangue Bolivar Soares Nogueira de Holanda Lima. During late 1977, several pictures of lights were recorded, but the military remained skeptical. After approximately 4 months, the operation was closed after finding no unusual phenomena. In 1997, 2 decades after the operation, Captain Urange gave an interview to ufologists where he recounted his experiences living alongside his men. 3 months after the interview, he was found dead in his home, attracting the interest of conspiracy theorists. According to ufologist Jacques Vallée, a number of individuals were reportedly killed as a result of the lights fired upon them by the UFOs, and injuries were consistent with radiation effects from microwaves. We can see the same effects in many other known cases of close encounters. Somebody on this planet has developed next-generation directed energy weapons. Other ufologists claimed that the lights from UFOs sucked blood from 400 people. Again, here we are talking about extraction of bodily liquids like in many other abduction cases. Bright objects of different shapes, sizes, and colors were said to have been flying at low altitudes just a few meters above the tops of trees and firing light beams at people on the ground below. Planes and helicopters cannot fly a few meters above the tops of trees, so those things are using different technology, which I suppose is anti-gravity. Several witnesses claim to have seen beings piloting the crafts, describing them as no more than 3 to 4 feet tall. Again, like many other reports, we have beings that are short. What separates the sightings from usual glimpses in the skies are the recurring injuries that people suffered. The beams gave off intense beams of radiation that caused puncture marks, with some reporting to local media at the time that it felt like a heavyweight pushed against their chest. Dr. Walaid Sesim Carvalho worked in a healthcare unit in the area during the 1970s. She says all of them had suffered lesions to the face or the thoracic area. They looked like radiation injuries. Dr. Carvalho, who treated islanders for their injuries after the attacks, later said she was compelled to lie to them about their injuries and to tell them they were simply hallucinations. Again, we have the Air Force trying to suppress the truth from coming out and trying to silence the witnesses, as we have seen in many other reports. With reports of more sightings and more incidents of people being injured or losing blood, panic soon started to set in, and women and children left the area while local men stayed to look after their homes or possessions. We have a similar situation here, like the alien attacks in Peru. There were several officers reporting seeing strange lights emerging from and diving back into coastal waters around the area, leading some to assume this was the location of a UFO base. Again, like many reports, we have a connection to water. Those things are reported coming out of the ocean. Half of the UFO reports by military personnel are from the Navy. They say they've seen those things in the ocean. The official documents can be obtained from the Brazilian National Archives. Link to the documents from the Black Vault is in the description. We also have another case of something similar. This is from Stephen Greer's National Press Conference event. By the way, I don't recommend the CE5 protocols because those entities that you contact are very, very deceitful. Sometimes they're evil. You basically open yourself up to demons, or however you want to call them, interdimensional beings, etc. But this is not about Stephen Greer. It's about the testimony of Michael Herrera, who is from the U.S. Marine Corps. This happened in Indonesia, 2009. Again, we have something happening in a remote jungle area.
And right there was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, especially with jungle terrain, things like that. Vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years. Was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray, as well as a dark matte black. So in between, that's what it kept, and it was very smooth. We had all looked at each other as we got online, and we decided to investigate. The further thing I want to say is that I actually took pictures and video of this before we actually trucked down. We had a dump pouch where we basically, if we expend ammunition, we want to retain our magazines, so we put those there. So I dropped my camera in there, and we decided to go down. We didn't have any communications, which was weird, and that was a very odd thing, and it's something that either could have been good that we didn't, or it could have been something that could have been very bad. And it just however you want to look at that. Once we got down this slope, we were approximately 150 meters away from this craft. When we all got to the point where we could see it, just like behind here, again, Mr. Schratt, phenomenal job. You can see that the craft here actually was roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft. It was rotating a clockwise motion. The panels here that you see, the black ones, at least 3 of them, was like a Vanta black, very dark. I have no idea what that was. On the very top, there was like a pyramid structure that you could see the shadowing of it, which would elicit that was a pyramid structure. And it had an audible hum to it, kind of like a guitar amp if you were to unplug that, or like a transformer. It's very audible. If I was to hear that sound again, I could tell you, okay, it's probably this thing or something similar to that. It's very distinct. And the way that it was floating, which was about 10, 15, 20 feet off the ground, it was kind of a very eerie thing to see because I've never seen anything like that in my life. When we got up to that point, we were then intercepted by a team of soldiers or rogue military force, if you will. The most concerning thing about this is they all had American dialects. They had American gear. They had OTVs, black. They had black camouflage. They had very similar setups to what we have, but more high speed, something what you would see special operation groups these days have. They had no insignias on. They had no ranks. They had nothing that would signify who they were. They had black ball caps. They had M4A4s that were equipped with ACOGs, which was a step up from what we were currently issued, as well as PEC-16 IR illumination devices that you use for night vision and night patrols, things like that. So we were engaged. We had 8 of them put the drop on us. You could audibly hear them blow the safety selectors off. They basically started screaming at us, telling us what we were doing, we were not allowed to be there, who were we with, what were we doing there, threatened that they could kill us right then and there. We could get lost in the jungle. They could throw us out of a helicopter if they needed to. It was very nerve-wracking at that point, especially looking to my fellow Marines and seeing the reactions on their faces too. We were all freaking scared, to say nonetheless. So with that being said, each Marine was then patted down along with myself. We had our weapons taken from us. They were basically cleared in condition 4, which means they had no round chamber, no magazine in. They dumped our magazines out of our mag pouches as well onto the deck. And then again, because of Marine Corps order, how things are with that, we were told to keep our military ID in our left breast pocket. So they knew that. They asked for our military identification. We gave it to them, obviously, because they have guns in our face. So provided that to them. They had something that looked like modern day smartphones, but this is 2009, so it's not really as high tech compared to obviously today. So they took some pictures of our military ID, and then they had something that remind me of a BAT system, which is a biometrics tracking system that we would use. This is for insurgents or any things like that. It would take fingerprints, it would take retina scans, it would take pictures of them and document them. So if there was other militaries that were coming to relieve our post, they would actually have this information too to know who they are dealing with. That's what it reminded me of, and I had trouble scanning the IDs. As this is going on, we're going back between these guys as well as what's going on in the background. At that time, there was 4 of these trucks, which were F-350s. They were up armored. They were pretty beefy. They had weapon cases that I've seen before because of something that we've actually loaded weapons into. They had 2 of them that were in the back of each truck. They also had these containers that was illustrated right here, which come to find out through recent revelations from yesterday from somebody who came forward to Dr. Greer. I don't know who they are, but what they had told him and what he has told me is that this gentleman knows exactly what these were used for because they had like a cylinder on the front, which is either for oxygen or what I hypothesized was for vacuum sealing, which lead me to suspect that they were smuggling narcotics or drugs. Come to find out it's more disturbing than that. This gentleman has firsthand account with this and says that it was for people. It's very disheartening, especially because that part of the world have already gotten ravaged.
Here you can see the same guy on the Sean Ryan show. He's talking about those black ops and human trafficking operations. Humans, not aliens. Humans using high technology, suppressed technology, probably anti-gravity. They probably have directed energy weapons and who knows what else. And they want us to believe they are space aliens.
Come and talk to you about this. And he went explaining what the operations do, why they do it, and what they were using them for. And he says there's not drugs that they're putting in these shipping containers. He says it's humans.
Human trafficking.
Yes. His own words. And, he, of course. And he also wants to come forward, at least with him and 30 other people that are involved with that part of the work. But it was very disheartening to actually get that information relayed to me. Because here I'm thinking for years it's drugs and it's a much sinister thing. But it makes sense because they use natural disasters that people are going to be missing anyway.
Yep.
Scoop up people.
In part 2 of this video, I talk about what technology those things might be using and how they can fly silently. It's about anti-gravity and its side effects, like invisibility and its effects on time. This can explain many things about the UFO phenomenon. Subscribe so you don't miss out.